Hello, and welcome to Exploring Axon, a podcast where we discuss Axon Framework, Axon Server, and their ecosystem. I am your host and a software developer at Axonic, Sarah Torrey. This is the second part of my talk with Alberto Brandolini. I hope you enjoy it, and let's have a listen. So another thing that always is interesting to me, because I see human interaction as a very interesting phenomenon because we're all different and we all act differently based on our previous experiences, current environment, what have you. Have you been in a situation where you're in a workshop, whether it's in-person workshop or now virtual, where there is so much conflict and so many opposing parts in the conversation where you just can't reach a solution?
Oh, well, not really, but there is a
That's
trick.
good. Yeah.
There is a trick. So when I'm doing big picture exploration, I'm actually snooping for conflicts. I'm not trying to put on the wall a big rosy picture of this is what you are. I don't care. I'm a consultant. I'm not solving rosy scenario. I need troubles. And so what are your problems? And let's make them visible. But in order to do this, I postpone every need for reaching an agreement. So if there is a conversation about the friction, I might let it go for a while. I might use a hotspot to capture and make it visible, but I cannot solve the issue. I just don't have enough information. Sometimes I can play the domain-driven design wildcard of using bounded context, like two people arguing.
Yeah.
Guys, you're both right. You're just in two different rooms.
Two different
This is a
contexts.
place
Yeah.
where you're right. This is a place where you're right. But then I will need to explain bounded context to an audience of 25 people that don't care about it. And so I might take a note for me or maybe have a little private conversation. But the cool thing is, in discovery, I don't try to solve problem, only to visualize them. But of course, my brain is thinking about, okay, this, and this. We're going to talk with these two guys later because we might have a vision. And if you don't mix, the exploration with the solution space, then you never get there. Then, of course, some people can actually hate each other, and you're just a visitor in this company, and the reasons are too deep for you, and you're just discovering it.
Yeah, which is also a good way of solving things, because once you kind of get to know the problem in a different light, I guess, which is helpful to many people to be able to come out of their stuck place and look for solutions. Whereas sometimes when you're dealing with too many conflicts, then people kind of get stuck and you can't get them out, which is not a good thing. Now, you mentioned bounded context, which I actually do have a question in regards to that. So when you are doing these workshops for businesses, obviously not everybody knows about domain-driven design and all of the wonderful vocabulary that goes along with it, like bounded context, ubiquitous language, and so forth. So how much of your time do you have to explain these terms to these individuals? Do you kind of go through a list maybe prior to starting the workshop, or do you explain as they come up?
No, I just try not to explain as much as possible. So explanation before the action is boring and worthless. I might make available some reference for reading maybe after, but before the fact, explaining a concept which is fuzzy. I mean, bounded context is one of the has a weird definition, is not really actionable, and you have to see it from different perspective. And it doesn't matter if you don't care about it. I mean, only software people care about it because people have a conversation. They have ambiguity in their language. They don't care. They just talk. Ambiguity becomes jokes. It's important for software people because this ambiguity becomes bugs, and bugs are our responsibility. And so it's just like a ticket for future scapegoating. And we care about it, but the rest of the company doesn't. But I only explain things which are actually relevant in this context. If I see something like, look, you have in this problem, this has a solution, and the solution has this shape, I just explain the minimum because I'm still in the DJ mode. Like, oh, this song is great. I'm going to stop the song and tell you about the life of the singer here that had a very interesting life. No, we just
Yeah.
wanted to dance. So I will
Right.
take a note, I will let people dance. And then
Yeah.
well, if you are curious about how did I solve this is the concept behind. These are the books and these are the references,
Yeah.
and then have a longer conversation. I don't stop the music.
Which is amazing, because as you mentioned, I think in one of your talks, you mentioned the fact that you, as a child, started playing the piano a little bit, and you could play some songs, and that was cool and interesting. And your dad was also playing. So, as kids, we always want to do things that our parents do because we want to be cool like them. But then you were sent to a music school, which everything was explained to you theoretically.
Yep.
And it actually was so wonderful to hear that, because I was a music teacher for about 20 years, and I actually taught piano for that whole time. So I could totally feel your pain from my personal experience as a piano student, as a child, but also as a teacher when I first started teaching. And it was so great to hear that, because I thought of my early days of teaching where I would get these little kids, and lucky for them, my music theory knowledge wasn't as great. So I had to come up with like songs, things like, Mary Had a Little Lamb, or like, Chopsticks or whatever. And as long as they were interested, just like you're mentioning with adults in workshops and in, workplaces, as long as you keep them interested, they want to explore more, they want to learn more, they are more eager to explore different things. But once you start bringing in these theoretical things, this ambiguous picture, then they're going to be like, okay, bye. I don't deal with any of this. So it's absolutely true. Now, one of the other things that I wanted to ask you was, sorry, I'm going back to bounded context. I'm stuck on bounded context.
That's very good for me.
But it was one of the things that I was thinking when I was modeling this system with one of my colleagues, and we started talking with different sort of aspects of this one aggregate, basically, what we're talking about. So the application was a music scheduling application. Mm-hmm. So we were thinking, okay, so what are the important things? So one, we want to have basically an account for the user to be able to use the system or register and find a lesson. Okay, so now then we have to have lesson that shows, various times, availability, things like that. And then at some point we want to be able to collect payments for them. So then we decided, okay, these are different contexts that we can talk about. So in your workshops, when people come up with different contexts, but the name of one of the things that we discovered was that we want to have a lesson aggregate within the account context and another lesson aggregate within, let's say, the teacher's context. So the two aggregates have the same exact name, but they are doing different things. You can connect them in between if you choose to at some point in the future. So let's say you have two people talking in your workshop, and they're both talking about quote unquote the same aggregate, but they're in different contexts. In that situation, do you then do a different session of, let's say, event storming for one context and a different one for another context, or do you combine them and sort of put them in different bubbles, basically?
I try to combine them because, let's say, we have to understand that the tendency for our brain is to have a consistent jargon. While the languages are overlapping with different contexts, still in the same conversation, our brain wants to make sure that these and these are two different things. So maybe giving two different names. If the names are the same, because we are mixing people from different departments in the same room, and we cannot tell them from now on, you should never call this lesson. You should call it training lesson, which is separate from the payment lesson in accounting. And it's not going to happen because this room is only temporary. They're going to get back to their job and they keep calling things the way they always used to.
The same way. Yeah.
So instead of using this little flip on the language, which is temporary and is a promise they cannot fulfill. Instead, use a space. So, which training are you talking? Well, the upper left and not the one which is here. If we can touch this training and this training are different, or lesson, this lesson is not the same lesson. Okay, maybe we add an extra symbol. Maybe we draw the boundary. We use yes this. Tapes to show like this is crossing a line, but touching this or using different colors as a reference for bounded context. Which lesson? The lesson in the blue space, not the lesson in the yellow space. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's we have the illusion of being able to change the language, but we can't.
Yeah. And it's difficult to change it because, like you said, everybody goes back to their desk and sort of go back to what they're used to. And that just makes sense because they've been doing it for a period of time. So that they're just going to continue going with it, which is an interesting thing to solve, but also a good way, as you mentioned, to have it visually in front of you and say, okay, this belongs to this section and this lesson belongs to this other section. So we don't get them confused.
Sorry,
yeah. No, go for it.
And the other thing that we do is a lot of people are thinking about, but I need to see everything about the lesson. That's the read model. And sometimes we just find a way to visualize maybe a wireframe, maybe a set of green stickies. That's everything you need to see at a given moment. It all falls under the same umbrella of a lesson, summary, whatever. And you see everything in there because usually the stakeholder don't care about our aggregates. They care about the things that I need to see on the screen. So I make the thing you need to see on the screen visible so that you're happy, and then I play the magic with my aggregates behind the scenes.
So as you start these workshops, and a lot of times the business question or the problem that you were trying to solve in the first place evolves through time. And as the system grows, things change, and you may come up with other necessary things in your system that didn't exist the first time you went through. Do you do continuous workshops for companies or businesses?
Yes, it might happen, but not regularly. So, well, it might be different reason, like well, how the budget goes, how the evolution goes. So with some companies, we are looking at the evolution. On ourselves, we're doing it continuously. Like when the pandemic hit us, we were a training company, organizing meetups, and then participating to events and physical workshops. Everything was wiped away. Every single process of our company needed to be redesigned. And also, we had a similar problem with our training aggregate somewhere. We realized by going remotely that okay, there was a constraint that was not really visible in the physical world, but now we need to be more flexible, like having a distributed session which are part of the same training. While it was just like that's a 3-day training, and we were expecting these 3 days to happen in
one day. Yeah.
And then okay, now you can play around with this because that was a consequence of traveling, and now, well, it's just like a lot more flexible. So we had to split the session from the top training and so on.
Yeah, which is, I think in some ways it could be a good thing because then it allows people, the participants, a little bit more time to sort of have things and ideas sort of sit and marinate a little bit. And then the next day they may come up with better solutions or different solutions for that matter.
Yeah, but I think there's also, there might be a limitation with budget. Like, well, you do budget, the budget is solving one big problem, and that's and then companies are happy. We solved our big problem. And I feel like let's keep accelerating. What is the
Right.
next problem in line? Oh, no, we're great. No, for me, is a continuous chain of, okay, now this is wiped away. What is the next one? I would like to work on this one. But at the same time, what I do is I teach away. I don't want to be the external bottleneck for your organization. That's That's not the role I'm looking for. I'm curious to see the evolution, especially if I see steps far away in the distance. I would like to see the whole story till the final moment. Well, sometimes we had the chance, but yeah, not every single time.
Yeah. So that's really, really interesting, and so many levels. Things are changing, and then we have to adapt to them, which is sometimes challenging, but sometimes
Yeah.
fun. So I guess the last point I wanted to talk about, which you already highlighted a little bit, which was the fact that we're continuously changing and trying new things out, and how important it is to keep evolving and keep learning new ways and keep coming back to maybe these initial ideas, but be able to change them and be flexible. So is that only for the process of event storming, or do you see that happening a lot of times if you, for instance, I don't know if you keep contact with some of these companies that do workshop, I don't know, like 5-6 years ago, and see if they're still going back and into the say the virtual whiteboard or the wall and putting their sticky notes on again and again to come up with new ideas. Have you kept in touch with any of them and seen that they're maybe doing this on a regular basis, or maybe people just do it one time and just forget about it?
Uh, what the thing that we saw is actually one of the things I'm missing most.
Mm-hmm.
It was the virality at the very
Yeah.
beginning. Like the moment
Mm-hmm.
we put the paper roll on the wall and we
Mm-hmm.
visualized everything. When I had
Yeah.
the chance to visit some companies, oh, you're still having paper rolls on, and you're using paper rolls for a lot of different stuff. So it went sometimes even more viral than I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, now I have no possibility of seeing it. Actually,
Yeah.
the thing that I'm missing, the other thing that I'm missing a lot is
Yeah.
you just can ignore the event storming. You can just
Yeah.
not log in into Miro and just happily ignore everything that was discussed in this place, while the big paper roll, 10 meters of orange stick is right in your face. It's something that was not ignorable. And you have to, yeah, what people discuss about this organization is now visible somewhere. And that's one thing that I'm missing. So the impact of the action is a little bit less transparent. At the same time, we get backstories. I just was reading something from one of our customers that was really, really happy at the end of the project. They said, like, we were super happy, and yes, recommending this to other companies later on. But it also has to do with the type of company that we are. We are on one side a training company, on the other side we have a group of partner consultants. We do gigs together, we do customize the training and learning experience, and sometimes we have the time to follow the customer to the end. We are actually having one project where we are taking care also of the development, but we don't have all the firepower to follow every single project that we start till the end. Well, companies have their own internal teams, but yes, let's say we are following one project and we're pretty happy about the outcome. Step after step, looks like no, that was a smart move. That is turning out a smart move too, and no, felt it's pretty good.
That's really cool that you follow up with that. That's really awesome. And I have to show you this. I am a fan of paper roll as well. I keep one next to me. It's they are so handy for yeah, my work, and also if I need to
I
entertain my
can't
kids.
escape paper. So
Yes,
that's
it's all
my
over.
note taking while I'm doing calls. So stand up,
Yeah.
marker in my hand, and then I'm
Hmm.
taking if needed.
And I gotta tell you, I so appreciate the process of writing things by hand. And I was talking to my colleague Stephen a while ago. We were talking about the process of learning how to code, and we were specifically talking about Java. And I said I learned Java by writing by hand, and I had these. I still do. They're somewhere here. These markers that my kids have put all over the house now. Anyways, I had all of these different color markers, and when I was first learning Java, there you go. Yes. You have several colors too.
Yeah.
I had this big piece of, it was like a calendar planner thing that was always on my desk. And when I was going through courses and I was taking online courses, I was literally writing the code down by hand, and I was using different colors to remind myself, okay, which one is the class, which one is like, I don't know, static class, which one's void, whatever. And I would take pictures of these and put them on Twitter, and I would get so many comments about, oh my gosh, I love that you're using different colors. And I was like, well, it's the same way that your IDE is working. For me as a person, as a visual person, I have to see things and I have to write it by hand for me to remember that. I learn so much better that way, as opposed to typing it on the computer and then not having it in front of me to basically scream at me, hey, pay attention to me. So I completely appreciate it. I understand that the fact that it's so helpful and valuable to have things written down. Now, some people feel overwhelmed and may feel like, oh my gosh, there's too much going on around me. It's so disorganized, I can't handle it. But for me personally, it's a thing I like to experiment with and have close by, lots of paper and pens.
You said something, two things. I was actually reading an article this morning about research in neuroscience from Tokyo, and they were saying, like, no, paper is superior. The amount of engagement in the brain, if you're doodling, if you're taking notes, if you're coloring, people taking notes on paper, people taking notes on iPad, or even using a digital pen, the brain is less engaged. You learn more if you use pen and paper or markers and paper, or it's still better. And our brain hasn't changed in this way. And but the second thing has to do with the colors and the spatial organization. So I'm getting back to the past. The first enterprise project I was in, I was asked to do the design of the domain layer and everything that was involved in that. And so at that time we were using Together J, one of the old style. I mean, it doesn't exist in that shape anymore, but it was beautiful at that time because it had a real round trip between the code and the UML diagrams. But I was using all the colors. I was making a map of everything. When my boss was asking me, "Oh, we need to make a change to this functionality." Oh yes, no problem. Is that 3 green classes in the top right corner of the diagram? What?
Yeah.
So, and I showed him the diagram and yeah. displays, and they had colors, and the colors had meaning, and whenever there was a change, like yes, it's there. And I knew exactly where to go because I made this view colored. At the same time, it was only for me. My colleagues were not looking at that picture. They say like, "Oh, the code is messy," and I was, "No, the code is not messy. Everything is exactly as it should be." So, and this conversation is the same if the person is right or wrong. Every single developer with use exactly the same word. So I have no idea if my code was messy or not, but clearly I knew exactly where any single class was because I had my spatial arrangement for everything with colors. So that's it didn't look like a Monet or a Van Gogh, but I knew there was right. Yellow burst in the bottom left. There was green on the top. There was blue somewhere, purple this, and I knew the meanings of this one. It was really easy for me to find my way in this space. Without this special organization, it was very hard for somebody else. Like, I don't see the connection. Look at this picture, but getting back to EventStorming. So the thing about confidence in the organization comes if you actually build a structure. With EventStorming, we are building the structure together. So we're doing put the things in the right space as a collaborative process. And so we see the overall layout of the business story, doing it together. So this ordering is actually meaningful for everybody. And so that there was a plan after all.
So there was not chaos. Chaos became an organized plan, which is
absolutely
fantastic. Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I always tease my mom with, because she used to come into my room when I was a teenager or even a kid and be like, it's so disorganized, everything's everywhere. And I'm like, no, I know exactly where everything is at. And every once in a while she would go in my room and clean everything up, and then it would mess me up because then I didn't know where everything So it's like, there is a system to my madness. There is, like, I know where things are. Now, from the outsider, it may look like absolute chaos and just,
Yep.
a bomb fell off in there and everything's just everywhere. But
Yeah.
when you go through it and you know it, and
yeah, but every categorization is personal, and your categorization is not good for me. And the only way to build a structure which is good for both is to do the categorization together. So actually, the teenage room analogy is perfect, because the thing we do is just like, we open all the drawers, we put everything on the floor, we make a big mess. Okay, now how do we sort this out together?
Right.
Okay, let's put the t-shirt there, let's put the trousers there. Oh, this is formal. Okay, let's agree on a structure first and then put it back in the drawers. That's even storming on the floor with clothes.
And it's funny that you mentioned that. A few years ago, when I had, actually maybe less than, maybe a couple years ago, I had a neighbor who had a teenage daughter who would come in a few times a week to help me with the kids. And one of her tasks was to fold the clean clothes. And one of the things that I found so amusing and interesting was that I hadn't told her how I wanted the clothes folded. I just gave her a pile of clean clothes, said, here you go. And when she left later in the evening and I was going through the clothes to put them away, I realized that there was no rhyme or reason to it. There was like the towel, and then on top of that was a pair of pants, and then there was a dress, and there was like socks. It's just like, it was a mess of a lasagna layer that I couldn't even find the next level. And it's like, okay, so that's interesting. And I was chuckling with my husband, and I said, how do you not know to put the clothes where they stood? Like, organize them, like all the pants go in one side or the socks go to, and he said, well, you can't assume that somebody else has the same organizational mind as you do. So if you want them to do it the way that you do, you have to explain it to them, and you have to go through the process with them so that you can find a common place to figure out, okay, so this is how I want the clothes to be folded. And I find that a lot of times in organizations, like companies and things like that, the same way, because we all different individuals coming with different backgrounds and different ways of doing things. But as you mentioned, when you put them together and we go through the process together is when we can find that commonality and that space where we can feel comfortable to explore and say, okay, this is the way that works for both of us. Maybe let's try it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the struggle is real. Like, it doesn't have to be software. Think about the wiki structure. A lot of wikis are optimized for dumping. I need to share this information, and people feel like, yeah, put it on the wiki, guys. Going to happen here. And they are not optimized for retrieval, because it's very hard for the producer of the information to think, how will people look for this? What is the problem in the future where this piece of content might be the solution? And it's two perspectives, and sometimes they are conflicting. Sometimes the perspective of the reader is not yet there. Or the problem we're having in these days is we are working on a piece of legacy software, and somebody said, like, it's documented, and I see the documentation. I can't do anything with this. But then you also realize that writing the documentation for a future reader, if you are inside the problem, is not working. It's just, okay, having tests would have been a lot better, but putting yourself, after being 3 months inside of a problem, putting yourself in the outside head of a potential future reader, no, it doesn't work. It just, you cannot write good documentation for the future person, because you just need a newcomer for doing this, not the expert. Unlearning is really hard in this case.
Exactly. And that's one of the interesting things I find myself sometimes in, because I'm very new in a lot of these concepts. So it's fun to explore from a perspective of somebody who is much more experienced and seasoned in the field. And so then I come in with, some crazy idea. I'm like, yeah, okay, try it maybe this way. And it's always fun to go through the process and seeing things from different perspective. I always really, really like the challenge, which is nice. Fantastic. So, oh my gosh, this is such a fun conversation with you, Alberto. I really, really appreciate you being here. Lots of laughs, lots of great talks. Yeah, and anything that I forgot to talk about. I mean, we can talk for hours, I think, but yeah.
Well, no, well, there's anything you can actually forget. No, it's no, I don't know. I don't know what to add. I mean, I had a good time, and yes, no, that's.
So, but one of the things that I would like to remind everybody who's listening that you are still continuously doing workshops, and you're continuously doing everything that you did previously, pre-virtual times at the moment as well. And do you have any talks and conferences coming up?
A little bit less when it comes to conferences. I just realized that I'm not enjoying conferences unless they get into some open space conversation. So I miss the behind the scenes. I miss the well, not necessarily the speakers dinner, but the other type of conversation, not the backstage. Let's say that. And so well, there's few oncoming, but. Well, before the pandemic, I was completely overwhelmed. I was already in the place like 3 invitation for the same day. How do I do this? And then the pandemic killed everything in the flow. And now, well, something is restarting, but yeah, it's a little bit less interesting. It's just like you can give a talk remotely, but then you don't feel really part of it unless there is a space for a conversation. So we did our DDD Open, and that was good. I joined the DDD Europe conference that had an open space part. That part with creativity or doing things that we haven't done already, that's the part I like most. And,
Yeah.
But yes, there's a few other talks which I'm negotiating, but I really don't feel. I miss the stage. I miss the people. I miss what happens after the talk. I miss did you like the talk? Now there's a few things that I could not say on stage, or maybe a few things you want to ask. That conversation is a conference. It's not the being on stage. And
hopefully we can have that within the next year or two, back to some sort of normal, maybe.
Yeah,
that would be really nice.
It's not gonna be quick, but slowly we can get back to this. And I see exactly. A lot of little creativity. I had a pretty good experience with it's called a chain conversation, and that was not a conference, just like a set of people have a conversation 30 minutes, then switching one. There are different formats, different way to make things happen.
Yeah, which is really nice. There are some good platforms coming out which allow for more networking outside of the quote unquote presentation, and which allows people to talk a little bit more. But yeah, I understand that it's not exactly the same, but hopefully we'll get back to a swing of things, with things being opened up a little bit more, and people being able to have more interaction. And I do have to say something I forgot to. There's a building in my neighborhood that have floor to ceiling windows on all of their levels, and they're filled with sticky notes. So every time I go by it, it reminds me of you. I love it. Okay. So they don't have papers there, but they just put it on the window, which is really cool. I wish things were open and I could just pop into that building and say, "Hey, can I look at your windows real quick and see what's there?" But yeah, it's really interesting.
Maybe well, thank you. Serial killer, you don't know.
Oh my God, I hope not. Well, like, the building has three levels, and all of them, all 3 stories, they have these they're yellow sticky notes mostly. So it's interesting to maybe see what's on the other side of it on the notes. Yeah. Hopefully not a serial killer. Hopefully somebody doing something productive. Yeah. So anyways, thank you so much for joining me today. It was such a pleasure to talk to you. I really appreciate your time. I know you're busy, and I really thank you for giving me the time to talk to you today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye-bye. I hope you enjoyed my talk with Alberto. Please join me next time as I talk about data protection module in Axon framework. Until then, have a great time and happy coding!